Senator Moore. Senator Conroy.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President, and could I thank all my colleagues who've made such informative contributions over the last few hours and yesterday and ongoing through the evening. I come to this debate with a mixture of frustration, anger and sadness. Frustration that genuine reform of the Senate voting procedures was possible, and that we could have addressed some of the somewhat overblown concerns that were discussed over the last few years and found a way that ameliorated some of those concerns without having to engage in parties rorting the voting system into the future for their own benefit. We could have solved this if those who've been involved in this were prepared not to stick to a deal they did years ago on the Parliamentary Committee, which did not have the support of the Labor Party and never had the support of the Labor Party at any stage, ever. Ever. The Federal Parliamentary Labor Party determines the position of the senators in this chamber, not the National Secretary. The Federal Parliamentary Caucus determines this position, not the National Secretary or any individual spokesman. Only the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party determines the position on this floor and is guidance for the senators and the House of Representatives members in this chamber. And nobody is above that. Nobody is above that, no matter how passionate they are on an issue, no matter how passionate they are. Because I was prepared to put my position to the floor of the caucus any and every time over the last 2.5 years, any and every time. And I promise you the outcome would have been exactly what it is today, at any time this had ever been put to people, any time whatsoever. Because this is a deal that was put together for the sole purpose of eradicating minor parties and independents to the benefit of the National Liberal Coalition and the Greens. Now, ironically, because they struggled to walk and chew gum, they didn't actually envisage the prospect of a double D. So I will wave sadly goodbye to a couple of Green senators who won't be coming back after the double D is called on May the 11th. But sometimes you get a bit of justice in politics, and that day will be justice, because you are consigning some of your own colleagues to oblivion. You'll be okay, but we all know what was really driving you. The tantrums that I've witnessed, the sense of entitlement that now surrounds the Greens senators, I find extraordinary. The sense of entitlement. But it's not just you. Senator Xenophon. Senator Xenophon says, I got 1.7 quotas and I should have got 2 senators. Well, no, Senator. To get 2 senators, you've got to get 2 quotas. And if everybody else in the system decided they weren't going to preference to you because they didn't want you to get 2 senators, well, guess what? That's called democracy. That's called democracy. And I've seen some references, some pretty ugly references to Senator Muir recently. A disgrace to the Senate, a disgrace to the Parliament. Well, frankly, and I'm happy to say this in front of Senator Muir, who happens to be here, he's probably the most normal person that's been elected to this Parliament in a long, long time.
Oh, me?
No, Doug, not you. No, Senator Cameron, not you. Not you. But genuinely, Senator Muir is probably the most normal Australian to have been elected to this chamber in a long time. I would have preferred a third Labor senator, apologies, Senator Muir, but I don't find it a disgrace that Senator Muir got elected. I accept there's some criticism of the voting system that could have been reformed without ever coming to a position where a normal person like Senator Muir could never get elected to this Parliament. And the Greens who are perpetrating this atrocity, this absolute travesty of democracy, where they've devised a system where 3.4 million Australians will have no say about the makeup of this chamber, is a disgrace. An absolute disgrace. And I am frustrated. I keep seeing members of parliament, senators saying they're sad. They're sad about what's happened, and they're sad about the Labor Party position. Well, let me say again, I'm sad that 3.4 million Australians are going to be locked out of representation, because what's really sad is the dishonesty. I have sat as national secretaries or federal directors, senior politicians have said, we don't know what's going to happen as a result of these reforms. The national secretary or the equivalent federal director of the Liberal Party doesn't know what's going to happen. Senior frontbenchers say, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. It's the will of the people. How dishonest can you be? Everybody else has stood up and said the purpose of this bill, it is designed to eradicate the crossbenchers. I don't know how much blunter. You should have just written eradication of crossbench senators as the title of the bill. You couldn't be more obvious. You couldn't be more blatant. And then you've got some of the key people like Senator Rhiannon, some of the key people who've been on the parliamentary committee, senior figures who spent their entire lives maximising the vote for their party, senior figures go, I have no idea what the outcome of this is going to be. Even key, important commentators have been dishonest in their representation. Dishonest in their representation of what this particular alleged reform will do in terms of the outcome. The only thing that came out of that farce of a parliamentary inquiry that the Greens and the government foisted on us was finally Anthony Green was forced to confess that yes, there was a strong chance that the coalition could get 38 or more in a double D or a half-Senate election. Finally confessed it. I looked at it for 30 seconds when I saw the first proposal and said this can deliver 38 senators for the coalition and 12 senators for the Greens. They know it. They just don't want to admit it, because then it will be seen for what it is, a rort that's about denying the opportunity for ordinary Australians to get elected to Parliament. It is a total rort. It's not a reform. It's a bill that says, from the Greens, we're pulling up the drawbridge. We're sick of those nasty minor parties that won't give us any preferences because they don't agree with us. This is like watching Senator Rhiannon attack Glenn Drury at the committee was comical. As they traded blows about what happened in the year 2000 and why wouldn't you give us preferences in this year and what happened in this state election. I mean, goodness me. What a tantrum from the Greens. What a tantrum from Senator Xenophon. What a sense of entitlement. And that's the thing I really find offensive about the position being advocated for the Greens. They pretend that it's not going to get them more senators in a half-Senate scenario, so don't let them come back in here and say, oh, 1 minute you're saying we're winning, 1 minute you're saying we're losing. Two very different scenarios. The fact they were too stupid to work out the government were actually planning a double D to use the new legislation, that's a matter for the Black Wiggle to explain to the people of Australia. I mean, seriously. Seriously. So I find it extraordinary, the sense of entitlement from those who are voting for this, that they're entitled to Senate positions. Senator Rhiannon is so offended by what happened in the last New South Wales Senate vote, the prospect that she mightn't win her seat. Oh my goodness, we can't possibly have a vote of the New South Wales people and make sure everyone's preferences are taken into account. So they create, I mean, you've got to admire, Tony Abbott's left the Prime Ministership, but the spirit of the Abbott slogan lives on. We're going to give the people of Australia control of their preferences because it's wrong the other way. We won't tell them that 25% of them won't be counted at all because they're going to exhaust. We won't tell them that what we're actually doing is introducing a radical package which will disenfranchise 25% of Australians who I wish voted for the Labor Party. But they don't vote for the Labor Party, they don't vote for the Coalition, and they don't vote for the Greens or Senator Xenophon. And apparently the way to fix that is to disenfranchise them. Let's take away their right to cast a preference below the line, 1 to however many, or to vote above the line. It's all about those nasty backroom deals. You are such hypocrites. I have spent years pseudo-negotiating with your backroom boys through various committees. You have been in the preference deal arrangements for years. You yourself, Senator Rhiannon, have engaged in practices to get yourself elected at the New South Wales state election and the federal election, the very things you are now attacking. You are guiltier than Glenn Drury for your behaviour, the very behaviour you have been attacking. The very behaviour you're now so mortified and opposed to. You've engaged in it for years, and you never thought it was wrong then until all of a sudden you worked out that, oh my goodness, no one wants to give us a preference. The best way to fix that is to disenfranchise 25% of Australians who vote in the Senate. What a lousy, lousy argument. But no, we'll just keep saying over and over again, Tony Abbott style, we've got to stop the backroom boys, we've got to stop the factional deals. You have been in the middle of them. At least say backroom boys and girls, because you've been in the room. You have been in the room. For goodness sake. For goodness sake, what a hypocrite. Coalition, I expect them to always wrought a system to try and make it as favourable to the Coalition as possible. I expect that. I'm not even bothering to waste my breath on you. I'm not even bothering to waste my breath on you. It is standard operating procedure. Whatever we've got to do to win, we'll do. Block supply, bring down a Prime Minister, knock over any convention, all of it. No, I'm talking about one from the opposite party when they're the Prime Minister and you're the opposition. It's 1975 I'm talking about. Okay? So let's be clear. There is no convention that's not prepared to be trashed for you to keep up. I respect that. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But at least I'm prepared to accept its normal, standard operating procedure. Normal. I know you would prefer me not to mention you. Okay? I know you're cheering me on because they're going to kick you to the curb. 12 o'clock tomorrow, they're going to kick you to the curb. Okay? I'm disgusted by you. They despise you. I'm disgusted by what you've done, but they despise you. And they're going to laugh all the way to the double D, wave you goodbye, a couple of you, and say, well, you voted for it, idiots. Seriously. Mr Acting Deputy President, it would be laughable if it wasn't so actually fundamentally wrong. So fundamentally wrong. Because I've seen a speech this morning that says the only way the Libs can get 38 is if the people of Australia vote for it. That's not true under this system. That's the point. 75% of people will vote for a particular main party and 25 will get nothing. 25% will not have voted. Their votes will have been exhausted, cast aside, eliminated by this legislation, and that's what gives those opposite 38 in the future. That does it, not the way the people of Australia vote. So when those dishonest people give speeches about, the only way the Liberals and Nationals can get 38 is by the will of the people, that is not true. That is so dishonest from some people who spent their entire life harvesting votes for the Labor Party that it beggars belief for the dishonesty that you could stand up in public and say that. And then when you're asked the serious question, well, what happens? You go, oh, I don't know. I mean, seriously, to take someone seriously that actually says, I'm proposing this voting change and I don't know what the outcome is, when they spent their entire life harvesting votes, doing preference deals, maximising the Labor Party's vote at every single election, and then suddenly say, oh, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I mean, seriously. Anyone who has a modicum of understanding of quota preferential voting fully understands the game, the scam and the rort being pulled by those opposite and the Greens. You have put all political principle, your own platform aside for a filthy deal that you thought would get you 12 votes, 12 seats, 12 green bums on seats, because you're entitled to them. You're entitled to them. The people of Australia decide who comes here. There's no sense of entitlement. They don't owe us anything. If I get elected, I consider it an absolute privilege to be here. I don't believe I'm entitled to be here, unlike those in that crossbench now who think they're entitled to red leather under their bums. That's what this is about down that end of the court, that end of the... Oh, please. Seriously.
Are you allowed to say...
Protection mobs in.
What about bottom? I think bottom may be more parliamentary rather than... Don't... I prefer bottoms. Like, bottoms. Bottoms rather than bums, Mr. Acting Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator McGrath. Senator Cameron.
On the point of order, I've been in Australia long enough to know what bums means. Bottom is a pommy thing, and I know you've been there. I know you get thrown out, but you know, bums is okay.
I'm not going to. Well, I don't think I will bother. Senator Conroy, proceed.
Keep going. But what I find really dishonest about the argument that's been put forward is I stand before you. Senator Muir, how many votes did you get? 17,000, did you say? Senator Muir, do you know how many votes I got to be elected to the Senate of Australia? 1,472. What a disgrace I am. What a disgrace. I'm even a bigger disgrace than you. I'm about 1/16th almost of a disgrace to you, or bigger disgrace than you. Because it's okay for a party to pass a preference down its ticket. It's okay for two parties to come together to pass their votes between each other if you call yourself a coalition. National Party, Liberal Party, they can pass preferences to each other. That's okay. But what's absolutely wrong is the Motor Enthusiast Party passing its preferences to the Liberal Democrats Party. That's wrong. That's wrong. The Greens will be trying to pass their preferences from their number one candidate to their number two candidate. It's not going to work for them. It's not going to work for them because they're not going to get enough votes. But it's okay to pass preferences from Senator Rhiannon to the number two on the Greens ticket, from Senator Ludlam with that huge vote that he got last time, pass it down to his number two. That's okay. But Senator Muir, how dare you give a preference to the Jackie Lambie Party, or the Glenn Lazarus Party, or the Liberal Democrats, or Family First? How dare you? What an affront to democracy. But it's okay for the Liberals to give votes to the Nationals. Yes. That's okay. But you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace to this parliament, Senator Muir. How dare you want to actually engage in a preference arrangement with another political party? You could form a coalition and that would be okay. Okay? That's fine. I mean, what hypocrisy. What hypocrisy. You want to deal with pop-up parties. You want to deal with some of the other complaints about the system. There are better ways to do it than this. Much better ways. But you're obstinate. You refuse to discuss it. You are committed to only one path because you knew it maximised the political benefit to yourselves. You knew it maximised the political benefit to yourselves. And that is what is so frustrating, disappointing and sad. You're going to pull a rort on the people of Australia. Pull a rort on the people of Australia because you think you're entitled to have your bum on red leather. Well, ultimately, the Australian people will work you out. Because that's the great thing about democracy in this country. Ultimately, the punters on the street work out the scams, the rorts and the frauds. And they work out those who pretend they're interested in democracy, and they will mark you down accordingly. Because they know a filthy deal that gives the coalition 38 a blocking majority, as I call it, 38 votes, but you don't care. No principle, no policy can pass without the permission of those opposite. No future environmental gains, social justice gains, Any of that, it all goes out the window so you can get your bum on your seat in the Senate in New South Wales. Senator Rhiannon, you should be ashamed of yourself. There are fairer ways to fix this. There are much more democratic ways to fix this. But at the end of the day, 25% of Australians will be disenfranchised by this vote. 25%. 3.4 million Australians will have their ballot papers put in the bin. They will have no say about who is elected to this chamber because of the filthy deal that Senator Rhiannon has orchestrated on behalf of the Black Wiggle and his friends, and they're too obstinate to admit that they've made a mistake. There is still time, but I don't think you have the fortitude and the backbone
Thank you,
to stand
Senator
up for
Conroy.
what's
Your
right.
time has expired.